Welcome to In the Room, where we explore the elusive world of casting for film, TV, and commercials. Join us as we interview directors, writers, producers, and actors, taking a deep dive into their experiences with casting and how the ultimate decisions are made in bringing a story to the screen. Get an inside look at casting and find out what really goes on in the room.
I think with the tuna, it's just the power. When they first bite, it's that explosion of line going and water flying. It's pretty exciting.
Because of my job, I tag a lot of fish. Then it clicked.
He says, I got a great idea. What we should do is catch a bluefin and we'll follow it and then see where it goes.
Oh! There's part of me that felt it was unfair that based on government quotas, the Canadian bluefin fishermen get one fish for the year. And these big companies harvest hundreds of these fish in an hour. There's something amiss.
I'm a little nervous, never flown before or anything.
We're going to Tokyo. The Japanese are driving the bluefin market.
And we're off.
Tsukiji market is reserved for the best of the best.
I could spend days in here just looking. So many different things that you never dreamt you'd ever see.
Okay, here we go.
It's fun when it's like this. Do something special for sure.
It's the best thing I've ever tasted.
My name's John. I am a casting director.
And my name's Chris, and I am a producer. And today we are joined by Kelly Lipscomb, writer and director of Bite to Bite. Kelly is an Austin-based writer and director and the chief creative officer at Widespread Creative, a production company known for crafting cinematic stories rooted in authenticity and adventure. His latest featured documentary, Bite to Bite, follows the extraordinary journey of a single bluefin tuna from fishermen in the cold waters of Nova Scotia to Tokyo's famed Tsukiji market. The film explores the delicate intersection of nature, endurance, and human connection, earning an honorable mention for a documentary feature at the 2025 Austin Film Festival. Before moving into feature filmmaking, Kelly spent years directing and producing campaigns for National Geographic, Yeti, Red Bull, The North Face, and Patagonia, developing a reputation for capturing humanity and beauty in some of the most demanding environments on Earth. With Bite to Bite, Kelly brings his experience full circle, merging his documentary eye and cinematic craft to tell a story that's both visually stunning and deeply human. Kelly, welcome to In the Room.
Thank you for having me.
It's very good to have you this morning.
Well, that was a great intro. I appreciate it.
Well, we do our best over here.
Keep talking.
Yeah. I'll just continue here. No, it's so funny. Your history with outdoor brands is probably integral to some of the stories that you're telling, specifically in this show, in this movie.
That's right. I thought he probably came across this in some of your adventures with like Patagonia, North Face, or Yeti.
Yeah, well, actually, coincidentally, I had a friend here in Austin who was a marine biologist, and I was filming a lot for some of these brands and networks. At that time, I think I was shooting for HBO Vice on their series they had originally, and I loved that just adventure camera work, filmmaking, and I was shooting more then, and I fancy myself a director and producer. Well, I am. That's how I make my living in town, doing mostly commercial work. But Robbie's foundation, he was working for Dr. Barbara Block, the preeminent bluefin tuna scientist, probably in the world. She had started tagging bluefin tuna in the 90s and innovated a lot of different ways to track and measure the fish when they tag them, so they would catch them and bring them onto a live boat. Robbie had been doing it up in Nova Scotia for, I don't know, maybe 8 years at that point in time, and they hired me to go up and film them for their foundation, Tag a Giant. And I was kind of blown away by the experience. Pretty seasick the first day or so, but by the end of it, I had hard drive computers taped down in the bow of the boat. I could go back and forth. Captain Lloyd, one of the two fishermen we traveled to Japan with, ultimately smoked these terrible clove cigarettes. And after a couple of days, they didn't bother me anymore. And you're just in it. And I love that about filmmaking. And it's been probably my passion is being out in the field and experiencing it. And then the challenge starts when you get it back into the edit bay.
Of course.
Well, especially with this one. You guys are brave to be like, we're going to follow a fish, to the risk of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's to tell a tight story in 80 minutes basically, and get a solid point across is difficult in any medium, much less film. When you were filming for the other organization that you were filming for, at what point was there like a light that clicked and you said to yourself, well, there's a story here and I'm interested in telling it?
Yeah, some of the best ideas are other people's ideas. And this was Robbie's. Robbie Shallert, who is a really renowned bluefin tuna scientist in his own right. Originally from Austin, Texas. He's a unicorn, as we call him. But he had developed this rapport. One of the, I think, interesting things about the film is that it chronicles these two fishermen and this scientist and their friendship on this really what is a buddy film, a journey halfway around the world. And over the years, they had developed a rapport. And Robbie came to find out that Dennis had never flown before, Captain Dennis. He'd never left Cape Breton Island. And he started trying to figure out a way to just get Dennis on an airplane. And it clicked. Let's follow a bluefin tuna and see where it goes. I was up there around that time when he had the idea, and I just thought it was great. I loved the idea, the structure of it inherently, the journey and the challenge. And so to me, it created a great just kind of structural foundation to start filming. So we did.
The path of the tuna.
Yeah.
That's great.
To show the other side of the bluefin tuna industry. We had 10 years ago, all those reality shows were pretty popular, I don't even know what they were called, but they were like spinoffs of Deadliest Catch.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of sensationalism and having been up there, filming with those real fishermen, the real Canadians, they scoffed at the Boston fishermen that were on the TV shows, and it was a really different breed. They were serious about it, but they were fun-loving and hardworking, and I just like the idea of getting behind the scenes and seeing like really what's behind the world's most valuable fish. Bluefin tuna is a controversial fish. Some people think they're worth millions of dollars. They aren't actually. But what's the history there? And so the film kind of unveils a lot more about this very special, important species that I think a lot of people don't know or haven't, experienced yet when they sit down and have some expensive sushi at a restaurant.
Yeah. And I mean, working in this field in particular, and with some of the other jobs that you've had commercially with Yeti and other companies that take you to the outside, you are inevitably talking about our greatest resource here on planet Earth. It is, in fact, the planet and its animals that live here. So I think from the get-go, telling a story about bluefin tuna, you sort of already are innately in charge of a responsibility that to tell the truth about what's happening with this fish in a way. And I think your film does that really marvelously. And, there are things that I learned by watching it. But when you talk about bluefin tuna specifically, there's these different regions on the planet, the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Gulf, where they go to spawn and stuff like that. And, it wasn't 10 years ago where there were certain parts of the planet where this species was becoming extinct, right? Because of overfishing.
I mean, in Nova Scotia, right?
And Japan was one of these places, right?
Yeah, it was. Right now, the Pacific bluefin or Pacific tuna species in general, especially off the western coast of like Mexico, those areas are really in bad shape because they don't have any quotas. But I didn't set out, and I never do, to make a political film. I didn't want to come at it with an angle or a bias, which is near impossible to do. But I have a journalism background. Since I was very young, I did newspapers. I wrote magazine articles through high school and college, and the foundation of writing, but wanting to report. You touched on it. It's what is the story, and how can we tell it in a way that's fair to everybody involved? And that's kind of was the mission. I didn't need to color it because there was enough competing dynamic within the journey and the characters that kind of intertwined around this fish as it traveled halfway around the world, that I just conveyed their viewpoints along the way through interviews and through our experiences with them. And you begin to realize that there can be disconnects between government, who will come in and come on these boats and don't really understand, and the fishermen, the local communities, corporations. There's a lot of things.
The corporate
at play.
stuff was insane to see. And then also the crossroads of those two worlds where they're trying to conserve it and they're consuming it. That was a strange bedfellow.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think when Robbie first got up to Nova Scotia and they found Captain Dennis, he was one of the only fishermen that had what they call a tuna door, and it's just a big door where they could haul the dead tuna or the near dead tuna they'd caught to sell at Tsukiji and other Japanese markets onto the boat alive. And Captain Dennis thought they would sink his boat. He'd never, just imagined 1,000-pound fish flopping around and causing chaos. They did it. It worked. And so that began what really is probably a storied period in the research of bluefin tuna. They had been overfished since the 70s and 80s. They weren't fished commercially until the 70s and 80s because Japan wasn't eating bluefin tuna. And this is one of the things that the film tells. One of the stories is Japan started eating bluefin and fattier fish in the mid-century after World War II. After the U.S. had won the war, we built 18 power plants across Japan, and we introduced butter, cheeseburgers, and it's not something that we're telling people. It's something that they're telling us. When we get to Japan, we started interviewing some folks there, and they never fished for bluefin tuna. They didn't eat it until the 50s and 60s. They had bluefin tuna all around their islands in Japan. By the 70s, they didn't anymore. They had caught too many. And so they were at the same time sending electronics over to the US. All of our electronics before they started coming from China and Asia, they were coming from Japan through the 70s and 80s. They would send these JEP airlines back home with empty cargo holds. They were trying to find a commodity to put in those planes to ship back just for economic purposes, right? And it just coincided with them discovering this Western Atlantic bluefin tuna were particularly massive and delicious in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia area. And
because of the fat in them?
Because of the fat, the richness, just the perfect condition of herring and mackerel being up there. 1,500-pound fish, you could catch pretty easily. It was a sport fish up until then. You see the old photos of Hemingway, the black and white photos of these giant fish. Those are the same fish that Robbie and Dr. Block were tagging for Tag a Giant, and that we filmed. Every year they migrate up the East Coast from the Gulf of Mexico to Nova Scotia, and they feed and they get fat, and then they migrate back to the Gulf and they spawn. And so we wanted to tell all these different stories, and ultimately we had an endpoint, which makes life a lot easier. It's you kind of got to know where you're going, but getting there and then getting into Tsukiji Market was a whole, another challenge we had to overcome along the way. So because it was so protected, there's a lot of controversy. You've seen the Well Wars show that was on forever, and there is well for sale in that market. There's a lot of things going on, but an amazing thing when I first went, and I went by myself a few months before and kind of scouted and hired some crew and snuck around. I managed to kind of sneak in after the frozen tuna auction in Tsukiji Market, which starts about 4 a.m. Our film features the more exclusive, truly hard to get into fresh bluefin tuna auction, which they don't just let anybody into. But it was astounding to me, having been in a Whole Foods or a Central Market seafood aisle. It smells like seafood, even in our finest grocery stores, not Tsukiji Market. It just smells fresh because the fish is so fresh from all over the world. They get it there as fast as they can.
That's crazy.
Yeah. By the time it comes out of the box, it doesn't really smell at all. It's just like just fresh fish.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been sitting there. It's not like it's sitting there for days. Most of the things that are coming in there, it's like a waypoint in a lot of ways.
Sure.
Things are coming in and things are going out like same day, basically, in mass.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's so fascinating to me in a lot of ways, just because as a bluefin tuna eater, I find that food very, very delicious. So it was.
I had it the night before I watched it.
Did you?
I did not. I had sushi the night before I watched it.
Was it good?
It's okay.
Well,
not after watching yours. I was like, that wasn't that fresh, probably.
A lot of times people don't realize this, but a lot of the lesser quality bluefin tuna goes from the East Coast or the Northeast, Canada, Eastern Seaboard, goes to Japan, and then it comes back all the way to us because it's not good enough for their market. And so a lot of times people eat tuna and maybe it's not so good and they don't like it. But if
so
you can eat it,
it's rejected and then it comes to the secondary markets.
Yeah, which is us.
Okay.
We don't really know. A lot of us don't know what is good sushi and what isn't. But when you go to Tsukiji Market or when you go to Japan and you eat sushi, it's good.
Really good.
Yeah. And that was kind of the interesting dichotomy, I think, of Bite to Bite is that, it is about consumption ultimately, and it's about the seafood industry. I think of it as it's a journey to the heart of the bluefin tuna industry, truly, and all that revolves around that, and conservation's key. Bluefin tuna happen to be broadcast spawners, which helps, unlike sharks. Sharks only have, I think, one. I'm not an expert. Robbie Shallard is, but bluefin tuna broadcast spawn, and they release millions of eggs when they're spawning in the Gulf or in the case of the Eastern Atlantic bluefin, the Med. And so that if they're managed properly, they can rebound pretty quickly. And so by the 90s, the bluefin had collapsed because of overfishing. There were no quotas. It had been a commercial fish until the 70s. All of a sudden, Japan's buying everything they can get, and the stocks declined precipitously. Government in Canada got involved. And then, it's kind of a test to see what quotas will work and how they implement them and how they adjust them. And our film delves into that as well.
Yeah. I think that was one of the more interesting facets of the film, honestly, is just to kind of know, like, if you're eating this stuff, like, where it's coming from. And that is kind of a pretty incredible part of the movie. Just before you get into making this movie, let's talk about kind of like your origin roots and where you sort of come from. I want to speak for Heather because that's her thing. She's like, I want to go back. So I feel like I have to represent her a little bit. Are you from Austin? Where did you start? You said you talked about journalism. Can you kind of just give me like the paragraph or two on like, where you came from?
Yeah, born and raised in Texas.
Okay.
I grew up in North Texas, a little town called Nocona, which is known for Justin Boots, Nocona Boots. It was on the Chisholm Trail back in the cattle drive days. Almost, some of my friends call me borderline Okie because it's just south of the Red River.
Got it.
Between Wichita Falls and Gainesville. That my parents met at UT here in the 60s. My brothers went to school here, and I got here in the late 90s, and I studied RTF and English literature, kind of dual tracking what I liked writing and I liked production, and I've just I've worked at it ever since. In my 20s, I started. I'd gotten a book contract out of college to go to Spain and traveled around for a couple of years, wrote a travel guide, and I just wanted to write books, and that was a daunting task and pretty solitary in your 20s, and it's kind of spun me more into production because I liked the camaraderie. I liked having crew around, and at the same time I was beginning to build an ad agency, just initially kind of using local clients and doing media buying and producing spots and developing campaigns. It was ultimately for me a way to make films and finance my own passions, TV shows. I've created and sold a few shows to networks and done a few documentaries, but I'm still hustling. It's I feel like I'm 20 years into this business, but I'm still a nobody and still hustling at it,
Yeah, well, it's funny. I think it's funny you should even mention that. I feel like we have similar roots. I also was doing dual track RTF English in the late 90s at UT, so I'm wondering if we even crossed paths at that point.
Did you have Ramirez Bird,
the
screenwriting
changed
teacher?
My life.
Richard Lewis, the producing.
He's my. We must have been in the same classes.
We might
maybe.
have been.
I don't know.
Small world.
That's back when they had the IPS sequence and stuff.
Yeah, and I didn't learn very much. It took another 5 years to get camera in my hands and get after it. You know? I mean, I loved it, and it was great to learn about Buster Keaton and all that theory stuff. But it truly, you couldn't get your hands on cameras in college here, in what's supposed to be one of the best film schools. They've since come in and brought real world.
Oh, I know.
It's gotten
folks.
better. Yeah.
They've got McConaughey. They've got other producers from Disney.
Scott Rice is over
Scott, yeah. And Scott was a contemporary of mine. He's a couple years older.
Yeah.
And he's done well. And I love being in Austin. I love the filmmaking community here. And for me, it was a challenge to get into it. Even being RTF, nobody at the school gave me the advice I wish somebody had given me, which I give kids now anytime they come in. We have interns from UT who come. My agency's called Widespread Creative in Austin. I have a production company called ATX Productions that we've recently launched, kind of spun off because Widespread kind of has become known as a creative agency for brands. And but yeah, just look, kid, if you want to get into film, just go PA. Just start PA and get out there and keep your mouth shut and get the coffee, keep a smile on your face and meet people. You'll learn everything you need to know about filmmaking just watching it. You get an insider's view on how they do it, and then you're off to the races.
That's what I did. I moved to Hollywood Boulevard at 18, grabbed the LA Weekly and grabbed an agent out of the back of it.
Smart.
And and it was I was working, quick, and learning, I did do some schooling, but like some dramatic arts, but when I showed up on set, I was like, oh, they didn't teach me a fucking thing.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, ultimately it's up to you, right? In this business. And it's not an easy business. I've learned, my dad was a car dealer and a self-professed capitalist pig. He was a great man.
My dad was a car dealer.
Are we kin? What's your last name?
Shay.
Possibly.
No,
I think
okay,
your dad got
not
around, right?
So funny.
He did get around.
And if we'd been smart, we'd have gotten into the car business, right?
Sometimes I think about just going and doing that very thing. I think I could probably sell cars. It's in my DNA.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, no, that has been, I've made car ads for years.
So did I.
Well, we should talk.
We're the same person.
We actually are.
That's hilarious.
We're trying some new AI technology today on the In the Room podcast.
You know what's funny is that when I was in college, probably at the same time you were, I'd started the intense production sequence in RTF. And the big, there was Film 1 classes. Raheel Singari was my Film 1 prof. She's making really great movies now around the world out of Greece.
Great.
We had Steenbecks, and we were editing. Nancy Shasari was teaching a sync sound class that I had, and we were editing that way. And then I took a semester off because I was like, I'm just getting a little burnt here. And by the time I came back, all of that machines and material had been pushed into a room in the corner of the 4th floor of the CMB.
Yeah.
And it was row after row
Final Cut
of Macintosh G4s with Final Cut Pro. And you were buying these 80 gig hard drives that were like the size of, a Trapper Keeper, if you know what Trapper Keepers are. And, editing took on a whole new thing with nonlinear editing. And so I felt blessed in the way that retroactively I look back and I was like, I got to sort of learn both processes, right? That there are people who were there, like the Scott Rices who were in their graduate programs and stuff. They were film purists. They were like, I'm never going to buy into this new thing. I'm a film purist. Right. And I was like, well, I'll give it a try. And I just thought it was kind of so cool. Final Cut was like the thing that you kind of sort of had to learn. But from a storytelling perspective, and I'm mentioning this because, you tell a great story in Bite to Bite, like, were you able to focus more on telling stories that way and thinking about structure in terms of, because your doc specifically reminds me of a lot of docs that I saw back then in and around the RTF program. They were like unbiased and unfiltered in a way, and they sort of they left the viewer with the unspoon-fed way of like making up their own mind about the things that they saw. And instead of saying like, this is what this doc is about and this is what you're supposed to be feeling and thinking, it just allowed me to like these feelings to sort of coalesce inside me and think about like my own thoughts and feelings and to actually feel something instead of being like hammered with a message. And I feel like those are always the best docs and the best movies, the ones that don't tell you what to think or how to feel. And I feel like we've always moved away from that over time. And that movie, and Bite to Bite specifically, was just something that, you could sort of like look at the friendship between the scientists and the fishermen. You could look at the relationship between the United States and Japan. You could look at the relationship between humans and the fish and just feel or think about it instead of having to come away from the movie with a specific political message, if you will, or whatever. And you were also doing English at the time, so I'm sure story was something that was definitely already sort of being programmed into your DNA, if you will. I mean, can you talk a little bit about like how how story became, story was a thing for you, if there were certain stories that you liked back then that were really moving for you?
Oh yeah, I love that question. My mom is a history professor. Her focus is Plains Indians and Spanish Texas. So I kind of grew up in this culture, and I loved Larry McMurtry and Cormac McCarthy from an early age. Where I was into novelists, and I was just hell bent on becoming one. Reading the Paris reviews of authors, and I fell in love with John Irving. He followed Charles Dickens, and many others. I mean, Cormac McCarthy is the opposite end of the spectrum. Very little punctuation versus a more Victorian writer like Irving. I loved Hemingway was a hero, right? So all of that kind of fed into things. But Irving, he had a line, he wouldn't start a new novel until he knew the last line of that novel. And he was, maybe he's full of shit, I don't know, but he was a great writer. And so I studied these authors. I tried to understand what they meant when they said they finally learned how to write well when they started writing honestly. And it was confounding when I was younger. And that was, that was the quest. Over time though, I kind of evolved into production and I just liked like you talk about Final Cut Pro. I mean, the industry was changing. I was working at the Daily Texan. I was the features editor. I had the back page, and I could just go cover whatever I wanted. I loved it. But it was changing. The writing was on the wall for freelance writing or for writing in general. It was moving online.
Blogs.
We were moving from Steenbecks to Final Cut Pro.
Yeah.
And DV was happening. I remember Linklater's film Tape came out with Ethan Hawke, and I thought it was brilliant. It was shot on some like Sony PM
DVX 1000, one of those cameras that we had downstairs to go check out.
Yeah. It was great. One of the first ones I think that did 24 frames a second, which was the holy grail, right? And we were trying to get that filmic look early on with these pretty inferior pixelated images, but we knew they'd get there. And then you had another local hero of mine and a national treasure as well, in the same ride as Linklater is or Terrence Malick, but Robert Rodriguez was right out front with his support of digital and pushing the bounds. So I was probably in my mid-20s, and I had some advertising clients, and I was shooting their ads. I was using local creative services network affiliates at local network TV stations around the state, and I'd kind of push them to their limit. I'd rent a cherry picker for some of my scripted, ridiculous spots. They'd be shooting on beta cams that were pretty awful, and I think my dad, who was really a great inspiration to me and helped supported the business side as much as anything, which I've increasingly relied on and had to learn, and it's become increasingly important to me. But he gave me the advice he saw me shooting all this stuff, but I didn't have my own gear, and advised me to just go get a small business loan and go get some equipment. And I did. And $50,000 later, I had some really nice cameras. I was like 26, 27. And I just set off filming. Not long after that, I was filming a documentary about these dirt track daredevils. And I realized it could be a TV series. And so I started trying to learn how to do that. At the time, docu-style TV was popular. We call it reality, and we scoff at it now. But I was making this true doc thing, going and just filming, traveling around the country, using my gear, learning how to shoot the right way, and ultimately sold that to A&E Network's History Channel as a TV series that ran for one season, 16 episodes, called American Daredevils. Mm-hmm. And it was, again, adventure filmmaking. I loved it. And I loved telling the stories of these characters that drew you in. But I had I think a visceral reaction to how bastardized that project was by the suits up in New York. And I vowed from then on, unless it was worth sacrificing a project for money, which sometimes it is, that I wasn't going to compromise my work anymore. At least, the work that is my work, right? Yeah. We've got all this work we do, and it needs to be good to survive. But then we've got these passion projects, and Bite to Bite truly was. I mean, I took a few years to make it, and I wasn't rushed or pressured to get it out. The technology and the digital video, now that we're shooting in 4K, it held up the years that I went through editing iterations with a few different editors. Ultimately, two great editors, Austin Reedy and John Grubbs, here in town. pulled it together. And so, you know, it's a joy to watch. For me, if I enjoy watching it, I know it's okay. It's okay, at least for me. I'm not going to be embarrassed.
Yeah. And like you were saying, speaking the truth and kind of getting to you talked about in literature, finding truth and speaking the truth and putting that out there. And you sort of carried that into the world of filmmaking, I guess, a little bit. And that kind of comes through in the movie 100%. When you talk about your editors and stuff, do you usually try? I mean, I've found that the best connections, the best relationships when you're making a project is to find shared interest, common ground, something to kind of meet the editor on. Is that something that you were looking for when you met, you know, Austin Reedy or these other people to help sort of like tell your vision, or was it like this is the story we're trying to tell, or was it more nebulous, the creative process for you?
Well, you know, I'm always, whether we're in the field shooting, I do a lot of production and producing where we're hiring crew and we go out and shoot whatever kind of content they call it these days. You know, you're always looking for the right people for your type of culture, and same at my shop downtown Widespread. We got to have people that vibe with how we do things, and a lot of that also is being not only talented and loving story, but a self-starter, people that I can rely on to do their jobs, because the older I get, the busier I get, and I don't want to have to micromanage, and I also don't want to limit creative professionals. I respect those lanes that allow them to do their work, and because I am one, you know, and I know what works well with me, which is kind of constructive criticism.
You want solutions. You want people to come with you with solutions.
It. That's the beauty of filmmaking. For me, that's the jam. I love overcoming, you know, problems on shoot day. I mean, I don't love it at the time, but I love the solutions. And in story and building story, especially with doc, when you're not working with a script, that makes life, I think, easier to in post, especially. You know, you're carving through a giant iceberg to try to create some kind of sculpture, and it takes a lot of time. The way I shoot too, I mean, I would just shoot, and for days. You know, I wasn't like a network job where I go travel 2 days, shoot 2 days, and hit it, quit it, you know, with a kind of a pre-scripted thing. I'm been there, done that, saw that, and not doing that. I wanted to get the real. And
the film breeze too. It feels like it has that sense when you're on the ocean. That's just like that quietness and that like sort of peacefulness.
Thank you. That's my favorite moments in the film, are when it's just, you're allowed to be there and be a fly on the wall in the boat. Or a seagull hovering over, looking out.
No, your shot selection's pretty choice, 100%. Like some of those shots, I'm just really enamored with, honestly.
There's a lot of time when you're on the boat and you're shooting just to watch for beauty. And filming in a beautiful place like Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. I mean, it could be brutal. The waves could be quite large. I almost got thrown off the boat at one point, kind of hanging on the gunnel filming. And I was midair when I realized this could be it. And then the boat caught me, and rather than kicking me back into the ocean, kicked me into the boat, and I lived, thank goodness. But yeah, there's a beauty to it. There's a challenge to it, and that's kind of what I think drove me to make it. Ultimately, the interest. To make documentary films, I think you have to be interested, and I was interested, right? And that drives you and pulls you along.
And what about scripted stuff? Is that something that you ever think about, or is your heart with telling?
No, my heart is with scripted too. I love writing, and I think I've worked so hard to build a foundation, a career, and a business here, that I've had to kind of put my early passion, which was narrative, which was storytelling, writing, screenwriting, kind of grew out of that a love, and I've written a bunch of scripts, but the last 15 years I've really focused on making commercial work, making TV stuff, and a few docs along the way I've really enjoyed. But yeah, that's my heart is in both. I love documentary. Right now I've got a show that we filmed. We started a vineyard up in North Texas, and with some help of my buddies here in the Hill Country, we have vineyards and wineries. We're at 11 acres now, and it's been a comedy of errors. This show Clarkson's Farm that's on Amazon Prime, it's total reality, but it's kind of honest because he controls it, he writes to it, you know, and that really inspired us because we were planting 6,000 vines and looking out in this hayfield like, what are we doing? And it's just, one
in
misstep
North Texas.
in North Texas. So
Yeah.
it's inherently absurd to be starting a vineyard in North
It's
Texas.
inhospitable there sometimes of the year. It's either it gets really cold up there, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of vectors, they call them. You learn, just like with bluefin tuna, I've learned all this stuff now about wine and grape growing, and we've had a lot of challenges. But we started filming during, we'd planted 4,000 grapes in the North Block, we call it. And this year we planted in March, April, 6,000 more. That's about 6 acres, South Block. So I just filmed the whole thing starting in December through April and May. And it was quite a process. That's a doc I'm working on. It's also a potential TV series. That's the other thing. When I'm going out, I'm self-funding these things. I'm trying to give them as much viability as possible. So this could be a TV series. Hopefully it will, because there's more money in that. Maybe. The industry's changed a lot. You can't just count on a certain budget. It's always changing, though. Or if nothing more, it could be a cool doc if we shoot it right. And I always know I've got that in my hip pocket. It might take me a few years to get it out, like Bite to Bite did, but I'm not just, throwing away money. I'm doing it to ultimately tell a story, capture a point in time, and entertain people.
Yeah, speak the truth out there. I one of the things I love about filmmaking is that it sometimes you get to take your passion, whether it is actually filmmaking or specifically truth-telling or storytelling, and sort of combined it with another interest of yours, whether it be bluefin tuna or wine country in North Texas or whatever. Do you have other interests that you would eventually love to combine your filmmaking prowess with and like get into? Like, I don't know, jet fighting, or I don't know, AI, I don't know, whatever.
I'm very careful talking about
I know,
AI.
I don't want to say the A word because this guy will just launch into...
I was wondering if we could cuss on here or not. Am I going to get
cuss?
beat?
You can definitely cuss.
There's
Yeah.
no rules.
You can do whatever the
right?
fuck you want.
All right, thank God. Fucking A. I'm actually doing it right now. I feel like I'm a great point in my life. I've got 2 beautiful kids, a beautiful wife, and I've got my production company rolling along. It's always a hustle, but it's working. It's been working for 15 years now, and my ad agency is doing all right. And I've always loved guitars since I was little too, and so a couple of years ago, I got the rights to a super rare pickup that is the sound of Trigger, Willie Nelson's famous guitar. It was made briefly in the 60s by Baldwin Company. They tried to get into guitars. They failed miserably, but they made this very unique pickup that electrified the folk era nylon string guitars back in the 60s. It was a hit, but it went away. It was rare. People wanted it still up until modern times. And you could find them on eBay, these Prismatone pickups, for $3,000 or $4,000. They were expensive. And I just looked up the trademark. It was available. So I snatched the trademark up and started building a brand around the Prismatone pickup 3 years ago, reinvented that pickup. I've since worked with Willie Nelson and his we have one on his backup guitar, Chris Stapleton. It's been a fun project for me to take what I've learned and our abilities at my ad agency and production company and apply them to my own companies. And I'm getting back to, I think, where I started and what my dad was good at, which is a certain entrepreneurship. I love it. I was on a mission with the Prismatone pickup to get it onto these very valuable, beautiful guitars that this luthier named Kirk Sand had been making since the 70s out in Laguna Beach. And he was Chet Atkins' guy and all these famous fingerstyle guitarists. He passed away unexpectedly last spring, and I just recently acquired his company and all of his tone woods, all of his gear. I've been working with his son, and so we will get our Prismatone pickups on his guitars, but I've just last week brought his entire shop he'd spent 40 years building guitars in to Austin, Texas. We're going to start making his guitars again. And so
advertising, documentary, music, wine.
Mhm.
You pick some really easy things to make it in.
I know it's absurd.
Like maybe the hardest one's the music.
Yeah.
And then the wine, and then the film. Like, I come from that background too. My dad's country and western singer, and so it's like I know a lot about how hard that industry is, you know? And so that's interesting that you wouldn't pick distribution of bluefin tuna or something maybe easier.
Right? No, I mean, it goes back to, I've learned over time, I'm not doing it, but sell things people need. They need tires, they need cars, they need AC units, and you're set, right? You can start a company, build it pretty easily. If you're building and designing, developing, producing things that people don't necessarily need, maybe it's entertainment, maybe it's a luxury, whatever, it's more challenging. So you have to get creative. Also in Austin, we don't just have one kind of, you can't just rely necessarily on feature filmmaking. I got a lot of friends that have been making feature films for years here in town that are crew, that are brilliant, but
that's
it
why we
dries
started
out.
this, to sort of give a platform for all our friends that are here, that are doing
Perfect.
great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's about, really. And it's about supporting our community because we rely on each other. I need to be able to pick up the phone and call one of my favorite sound guys, a great DP, get a gaffer out who I know and trust and make things look beautiful. And, it's a great ride. It's hard to get into, but if you just stick with it like anything from early on, and if people would tell kids this more often, you can do anything you want. And I'm still not there yet, but there are fleeting glimpses of the promised land and where I'm going in my career.
Well, you're in it. Same for, I think, me, and same for Chris. Like, you're in it, I've got a 30-year career in it, and that's success. Just being able to stay in it,
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back to Bite and talk more about the town and the fishermen and sort of like what, because I think I mapped out that fish to be about 8K. Was that what it went for? Like,
yeah, they ultimately, that's right. They made about $8,000 ultimately after everything was said and done.
Yeah.
Which isn't that much.
Which isn't that much. So how many fish are they trying to sell, and what's that town kind of like? What's the environment there?
Well, it's a sleepy, idyllic Canadian coastal fishing town on Cape Breton Island, beautiful island, about 3.5 hours outside of Halifax. The drive in the fall is incredible because it's just towering trees, red, orange, yellow leaves, and it's an incredibly beautiful island. It's been quite preserved. They are a seafaring culture. They originally migrated over generations ago from Ireland, Scotland, mostly the Northern European countries, and you can see that in their culture. They rely on herring and bluefin fishing and lobster fishing, mostly. Bluefin tuna was a blip on the radar. For 20, 30 years, they were making really good money at it, and then, the species, the stocks declined. The quotas came in, so where they could catch a lot of fish and make good money during the heyday of the bluefin tuna industry, which was the 70s and 80s and into the early 90s, now they can only catch one fish. Or they could at the time we made the film. It's since been adjusted, and because the stocks have come back up, some of the fishermen are getting more than one fish a year. And there's a quota system. It's an interesting thing. Lloyd, or Captain Dennis actually, Robbie Shallot was just telling me, because he was just up tagging again, that Captain Dennis sold his lobster fishing license. And we had gone up, filmed, I wanted to capture all the seasons up there. So we had been up and filmed him lobster fishing, which is brutal. You're up at like 3 a.m. on a boat, and that's just too early for anybody. But he sold his fishing or his lobster license for a lot of money, and I was surprised. That's a retirement thing for these guys, I think, So you buy in and you buy stock. There's another guy who's in our film briefly, Melvin, and he is a legend up there. This guy, he catches the massive ones, and he and Dennis are close friends, but Melvin has done a really good job of doing what we hoped Dennis and Lloyd would do coming out of this film, which was just grow their operation, marketing superior bluefin tuna that they've taken care of to Japan. But Melvin got a lot more quota, and I think the stock's on the rebound. Things are looking good, but it's, you realize it's whack-a-mole, and so you got to kind of continue to monitor. And that's, at the end of the day, you need science in there looking at it and peeling back the layers of the ocean. It's hard to get accurate counts when you're talking about underwater, right? It's not like you can go to the savannas of Africa and count how many zebra or how many gorillas are in the mist. You got to peel back the layers of the ocean. So you need the fishermen to work with the scientists, and that at heart, I think, is drives the story of Bite to Bite.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually thought about collaboration when I watched your film, both between the fishermen and the scientists, but also you probably instinctually had to hire a Japanese crew to help you in Japan, and like meeting those people and making those inroads, that takes time and energy. Sometimes you strike out, But when you find a couple of people that you can work with and that you trust, I think it usually pays off. I think it did in your movie.
Thank you.
Did you what were some of the larger trials and tribulations that you had when you were making it? I mean, or what did they primarily exist in a post-production capacity? Or it seems like you were kind of out there. You were one man banding this for the most part during production. It seems like, right?
Yeah.
You and it looked like a Canon, maybe like a C500 or something.
Yeah, it was. And I was just dumb enough to shoot on cinema prime lenses and follow focus on this 30-foot rocking
I think I saw
boat.
you a couple times.
You can see it, and I loved it when I could keep it in focus because it looks great. The background's crushed and it's cinematic. It's what I wanted to go for. I've always been after that look that we talk about in film school, that filmic look.
Sure.
And a great colorist, Alice Abrams did it. Did the color. She really brought it out.
Is she in Austin?
She is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shout out to Alice.
Yeah, shout out to Alice. She's wonderful. She's going on maternity leave right now, so you'll be able to book her in the spring,
Nice.
summer 2026.
Okay.
But we're trying to hustle some commercial projects in right now for her because color is a big part of it too. But yeah, I still love running camera. I'm just I don't do it as much. But the challenge is, besides that and salt water and filming on the boat, I think was one, finding a wholesaler that would work with us to basically follow the fish, because the wholesalers are at the docks in Cape Breton, in Port Hood, and a few other places where there are these fishing industries there, and they buy the fish. Traditionally, they would have auctions, and but it had become more of a commodities-based thing, and a couple of wholesalers had made inroads. So we had a wholesale company. I'm not going to name their name because they ultimately screwed us. But they had
you should name their name.
Chubby Fish, the dreaded Chubby Fish. This is a wholesale company, and since I think there's others that have come up, and that guy came in from the Northeast and was like a commodities trader, and
There was the guy who was grading the fish, and he was
the buyer, and he came in and he started undercutting the other wholesalers and buying and just developing relationships with the fishermen just because he was paying too much, right? It's kind of like how a car dealership would come in and pay too much for a trade-in, right? And you can do that for a little while, but it's not sustainable. Anyway, so we're sitting at the bar because that literally, they're only catching these fish a couple weeks out of the year when it's this golden period.
In the fall.
It's in the fall, and the fishermen that are going for bigger fish or better quality, like Captain Dennis and Lloyd, are waiting because the best bluefin tuna they've feasted on both herring and mackerel. It gives the marbling, the oils, the taste that Japan pays a premium for. You've got to wait till late in the season, meaning that a lot of the bluefin tuna population has already begun its migratory return to the Gulf of Mexico down the eastern seaboard. So there's fewer fish. It's riskier. We had 2 days to catch our fish. Once we'd found a new wholesaler that would work with us. So we're sitting at the bar that first year. We had planned to film. We'd gone up. I had a small crew ready to film with me, sound guy, another couple camera ops, and pretty basic crew, but they bailed on us. They totally ghosted us. And so we were down on our luck, sitting at the bar, Robbie and I, after a day of fishing. And there happened to be another guy down on his luck at the end of the bar named Scott, and he was a wholesaler out of Boston, a bluefin tuna wholesaler, and we just hit it off with him. He's a cool guy, and you could tell he knew a lot. And he told us about this guy, Bill Court, who was an American who'd been in Skiju Market for 40 years. And then, we were
That
off.
must have been like divine intervention.
That's
there.
the luck of
It's
filmmaking,
serendipity,
though.
yeah.
I mean, that's just kind of that luck of filmmaking.
I love when stuff like that
Yeah.
happens, honestly. You're
Yeah.
like, this was meant to happen.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if this film had won Austin Film Festival instead of getting beat by a National Geographic film that had $1 million budget, I'd say this was meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
But you just keep hustling at it. That was a challenge. It's always a challenge. Make the film, but then how are you going to make money at it, right? We don't necessarily just do it for our health. There's a certain amount of artistry to it, but I truly believe that money is the greatest form of recognition, and so that's the big challenge with what we do is how can you make great things?
I kind of disagree with that. Just like the notes from a network, right? It's like they're not good, you know. And a lot of times the buyers, they're looking for low hanging fruit at that time,
True.
So many films that are just like so good just don't see the light of day.
No, that's it. And it's because maybe they couldn't figure out how to make money or get it distributed or whatever. And, a couple of those kind of failed experiments and you might be out, right? And that's where, again, in Austin, you have to be a little bit diverse. That's why my company's called Widespread Creative and that's why I do these various things. I kind of knew going in that I'd have to.
Advertising pays for everything. I've been in advertising for 30 years. It pays for everything.
Yeah, it's the backbone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so learning that stuff, I think kids in production at RTF, at UT, or other film schools would do good to take some courses to learn like what really drives a lot of what you're seeing on television, and it's media buying. And you can make pretty good money if you know how to do it. It's not rocket science. So
we talk about this a lot on here, like the flow of money, where it goes, how it fuels the industry. Specifically, you talk about money being a great thing to have. I think about legacy. You talk about putting these things out there. This movie, Bite to Bite, will exist now in the pantheon of film. It'll be around long after we're all dead and gone, potentially. People can watch it 100 years from now when potentially bluefin tuna is extinct.
With technology today, we might be around for like 140.
Well, exactly. But what I'm saying is like this thing that you have made now, and along with the other stuff that you made, the American Daredevil, all that other stuff, these things will exist for a while. And they will be presenting this message that you've worked really hard to perfect or to get right for you in this time. And I'm presuming you finished shooting last year. Was it ended of 2024 or 2023?
Yeah, a little bit earlier than that.
Okay. Yeah, right. Because they destroyed the market in Japan, right? There was like a line at the end of the movie.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about the film. And truly, the recognition really is in people enjoying the film more than anything. But you got to have the money to make it.
Yeah.
And you need to make a living. And that's my point. But truly, it is for people to go out and tell me, come up after watching the film. It's been premiering at Austin Film Festival 2025 this week. And I can tell that people are genuine. They're enjoying watching it. And that means the world to me, because you are a little bit nervous going in. How are people going to receive this? Will they enjoy it? And that ultimately, I think, is the goal, to tell a good story.
It's such the coolest thing to sit in a theater and see how people react to your, massively hard work and seeing that you can just feel the different emotions and that you crafted it perfectly,
Well, it's an imperfect experiment always, right? Yeah. Because it's just, there's always more you could do, and you can always make it better. In my case, on this film, it needed some iterations. I needed the time, but I probably should have put it out a few years back and just moved on. Maybe I liked it. I don't know.
It definitely doesn't feel like it's buried in a time period. It definitely feels relevant now.
It totally is. It's just as relevant
Having
today.
just got to Japan, I'm like, this feels like I was just there. I just saw it. Like
you were just there.
Yeah, I was just there.
I have to go ahead.
No, please.
I have to ask a question because we're coming up on time.
Please do.
Is the fish? I mean, what would have happened if you didn't catch the fish? Like,
I guess it would have delayed the whole project another year. Because, you can't stop, right? If you set off on a mission, you just got to keep at it. And the mission was to follow one giant bluefin tuna from the point it was caught in Nova Scotia to the point it was eaten at a sushi table in Japan.
Yeah.
And
with the fishermen.
With the fishermen who were truly fish out of water.
Yeah.
And ultimately we made it happen. There were challenges along the way. It's part of the fun. You just expect them, and ultimately you find great characters, especially in doc. I mean, that's what drives me. I'm interested in interesting cultures and characters. I never know what's going to get their hooks into me, but this one did, and I'm proud of it. I'm glad it's finished. We've got we actually have a scripted, or not scripted. We're not scripting our docs. We have a docuseries spinoff from Bite to Bite that we're pitching right now called Seat at Table. And it's a mix of Chef's Table meets travel Nat Geo type films, but each episode focuses on a different species, just kind of like Bite to Bite focused on bluefin tuna. There's rays, there's Arctic toothfish, aka Chilean sea bass. There's a lot of stories out there that are very interesting, and when you follow the fish from their origin to where they end up, it's just a great structure for kind of a commentary on where we are in life and in seafood in this case. Yeah.
I feel like it's a very niche subject too, because figuring out our food sources and checking in on those from time to time is usually probably a good idea, because what always winds up happening is that a year or 2 or 3 go by, and then someone says, "Oh, by the way, we don't have this food source anymore."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Wait, what happened? What? What's going on?" So I feel like it's always good to check in. I definitely feel like Bite to Bite's one of these movies that's like, this is the tuna situation, by the way. Did you know this was happening? Did you know this is where? And I found myself after the movie kind of just Googling facts, like, what was the most expensive tuna ever sold? Where is tuna primarily fished and farmed, like all over the world? Like, what are the regions and what's the differences? And I don't know, it just fueled like interest after interest after interest. And I just realized that this rabbit hole could probably go a lot deeper. So I'm really appreciative that, we can have like a filmmaker that really jumps down that rabbit hole for us and sort of brings back like the good trimmings, if you will, the good marbled tuna to like share with the rest of us. So bravo to you for making that. And so AFF is happening right now. This probably won't come out for a little bit, but are there other plans for the film in terms of where it will go now, or how it'll be kept in a place for people to see? Because I think the idea is for more people to see this, right? Because we want that as filmmakers.
Yeah, we're talking to some distributors now, and this is just the beginning of our kind of festival run.
Okay, great.
And so, it's about building on this momentum that we started here at Austin Film Festival.
Mm-hmm.
Cher, my publicist, is over here. The film, she's done a great job. I couldn't have afforded her 10 years ago when I was a younger filmmaker, but that's why you stick with it.
Yeah.
It might take 20 years, it might take 30, it might take 5.
Yeah.
But it's just keep at it, and that's what we're doing with Bite to Bite. So ultimately, it will end up on one of the networks or one of the streaming platforms, because the mission isn't finished until it's out there.
Yeah, and had you been at AFF before?
Yeah, I've had a couple other films in Austin Film Festival in the past.
You're familiar with the whole...
One feature I produced called Home State. It won the Audience Award a few years back. And then a documentary that I produced or directed and shot about a very famous sports writer named Dan Jenkins, who really kind of made college football in the 60s and that whole race to the championship a big thing. And he was a Fort Worth boy and a golf guy too. So
what's that one called?
It's called By Dan Jenkins.
Okay.
He wrote all of these wonderful racy books. He was great friends with Bud Shrake and all these other Texas legends.
Yeah.
And that film revolved, again, another journey. He was 87 years old, going to report on the final U.S. Open that he would cover. And at that point, he was tweeting for Golf Digest. And so we rode up with him from Fort Worth, Texas, to the U.S. Open in Erin Hills, Michigan. Michigan, was it? Anyways, up in the north, and it was Wisconsin, Milwaukee. Anyways, somewhere up there, and he. It's just to see a man on a mission, right, or a woman, just love their craft. He was 87 years into this career, still doing it, on all kinds of meds to just keep doing it. And again, a journey, a story in the end. And so, I've had a few films. I'm still at it, right? And we've got other projects going, and that's the game, is just to keep at it. Be smart about it, and ideally use other people's money if you're going to go make ambitious projects. It's something I've learned the hard way.
Which is another whole area that's really, really difficult.
Truly.
I've raised money forever, and it's really, really hard.
Yeah, I've learned to try to find the people that are good at it, because I'm not, and some are. And that's tough, because they're not, a dime a dozen.
It's hard to convince someone to write you a $5 million check to go play make-believe.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah.
That's why you get like 60 people to write you $20,000 checks.
It's a hassle too. Yeah.
That's also a hassle the more you break it up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a game, and it's definitely hard to play. I don't enjoy it either. I mean, I think we'd all just rather be in like a creative endeavor doing that kind of thing instead of having to worry about money. But
I mean, eat all the way up.
Yeah.
Everybody I work for, all the way up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're at time.
Yeah. Is there any other? We should just ask. I mean, you mentioned some other projects that you're working on.
Yeah. I've got two that are my focus right now. One is a scripted feature about Evel Knievel.
Oh, cool.
That derives from my years of traveling up to Butte, Montana, and kind of learning a lot about that whole era. So that's a fun one. I'm really excited to kind of spin off into that. And then I've also, we've got this wine show that we're filming, this documentary about Texas wine, which is a pretty localized thing. And then I'm considering another kind of topical species-based film about rosewood, which is it's the most valuable illegally trafficked commodity in the world, and it's something that I'm interested in. So that's a whole nother game.
I mean, I'm
It's
immediately
another
I'm
part.
like,
wait
this
a minute.
question, this question. Can I get some rosewood out back in the alley real quick? What is it? I want it.
Yeah, no.
I'd watch the hell out
Everybody
of
wants
that, for
rosewood.
sure.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
So, yeah, you just got to be interested and keep hustling.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's exciting. And do you working, is there like a group of people that are in your like trust circle that you have to help you with this? Or are you still feeling fairly like one man, just kind of like on the mission, overseeing things like?
Because I hire a lot of folks in town for commercial jobs, they'll work with me on my own development in-house projects.
Got it.
And, I share gear with folks too, and they'll share gear with me. They give me cut rates. Sometimes they'll do it just to do it. And then
Even the rental houses, if you can keep them working commercially, they'll help you out.
Yeah, that's totally
Yes,
it.
they're
It's
great.
been very important, but I've never let that hold me back, and it goes back to taking out a small business loan in my mid-20s and buying some camera gear. At the end of the day, if I've got to make it, I'm going to put the camera on my shoulder and I'm going to go shoot it.
Yeah.
And understanding, I think, all those aspects in the filmmaking is really important. It has been for me. I needed to know editing. I needed to know how to run camera. I needed to know producing, screenwriting, whatever, and it all works together. And if you're going to be a director and oversee these people and manage and produce, you kind of need to know that. And that's something that I've evolved into. I love directing. I love directing people. I don't like managing so much, but I love the finished product. Yeah. It's so rewarding when you finish a great little TV spot or a feature doc in this case, and you can just sit back and watch it and, realize that you made it.
So I have some black wings for rent if you ever need some black wings.
But what are black?
The lens-
Oh, the lenses. Yeah. Oh, nice.
We got a
Okay.
bunch
Those
of
are
stuff.
expensive.
Yeah, we got a bunch of stuff.
I went down that hole for a while. That first business loan I got to buy the original cameras, I went back a couple more times. The whole thing, the reds, the prime lenses, and
chase your tail.
crane at
you
one
chase
point.
your tail for years.
It was,
on that
but
front.
it was important, honestly, to be able to use that gear.
Yeah.
To
Couldn't
make
afford it. Yeah, you got to.
No,
Yeah.
and I didn't go. I mean, I went out to LA and tried to sell a screenplay. It chewed me up, spit me back out to Texas within a year and a half. But
Tulsa time, baby.
Totally. At the end of the day, though, you gotta get the gear somehow or another in your hands and just start shooting.
Yeah. And that's what we did in college, right?
That is.
We were in this like nebulous area between film cameras like Bolexes 16 millimeter, which we were shooting on, and they HD hadn't even become a thing yet.
No.
So it was like SD cameras, these 3-chip cameras, the Sony VX1 2000, 1000,
DV
Canon
tape.
XL1, that kind of thing. So we were just like, okay, this is what we have to use. And I never forget, I had Steve Metz it was like digital filmmaking class, whatever. This was like circa 2000. He's just like, the camera doesn't matter, man. You're a storyteller, so just grab the thing and make the story. And I was like, and I'll never forget that. I'm like, yeah. And now you look at what you can rent out from UT, and they've got everything under the sun. You can get Alexa, you can get a Red, whatever you want with any lens package. So it ultimately doesn't matter. But I hear what you're saying about getting the right equipment for sure. My mind is always one where it's like, I want to buy something and I want to use it for years and not have it become obsolete. I hate the fact that we're such an upgradable humanity now. Is like a new iPhone every 2 seconds, a new car every 3 seconds. Like, I want to buy something and just have it work for a while and trust it.
Which you can do now.
Yeah, exactly.
It finally got to that point with digital video or HD or 4K or 8K. I mean, Red and Arri, Alexa's Arri. I don't know. Maybe you guys say Arri. There's some people say Arri. How do you properly pronounce that?
I think Aries probably.
Yeah.
I hear it Airy a lot.
Yeah. So I don't even know that after 20 years.
It
Right?
It only doesn't matter. We live in a city where street names are pronounced 6 different ways.
Yeah,
so
totally.
That's right. Yeah.
we can do whatever we want.
Okay,
that's
cool.
the thing. It's
So,
our universe.
Aries and Reds, you can go out and get them. You can get
Yeah.
a little red Komodo, and you're off to the races.
You can shoot 4K on your phone. Like
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that 28 days later, 28 years later?
Danny
one that
Boyle.
won Sundance. That was a few years back. They did it all on their phone. You can get lenses and all kinds of crazy stuff. I'll tell you about it later with advertising, but yeah, we use a lot of phone stuff for advertising.
I had a sound guy on that wine show. He had a big 16 plus camera, was shooting just because we only had 2 other cameras. So he was shooting a wide. He showed it to me after. I was like, holy shit, let's just start shooting with these. This is so honestly, when we pick that project back up, we may go straight because it's again an indie project, and we're just trying to get it to a point to sell it and make more with better gear. So why not get out there and use those cameras?
It's so accessible now to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to wrap it up.
All right.
Man, that was great.
Kelly, thanks so much for being with us today. I appreciate your
Chris,
time.
thank you guys.
For sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is fun. It's great to know that we were at UT together studying film at the same time.
And literature.
Yeah, and
I'm
literature.
an English minor. I got.
You didn't have Madoff, did you?
No.
He was not the Bernie Madoff, but there was another. He was a ball breaker.
Man,
yeah.
I had some really great profs though. I took a deep dive into medieval literature, which was really weird.
Oh yeah,
but it was very rewarding.
It was great
honestly.
Because I could go over from the Six Pack in the Liberal Arts Building and having written this really challenging, 8-page essay that, and then I could go over to RTF and write, an essay about whatever film, The Freshman or whatever, and just ace it because they were like, holy.
Hands on a hard body.
That was, that came out a couple years before us. Rob Bendler. Yeah, another guy here in town who's done some great things. So hope to get to hang out with him more. And Linklater and Rodriguez. I got to, shake Rodriguez's hand the other day at the awards luncheon for Austin Film Festival. And you just want to tell those guys good on you. You've been beacons of our industry. You've supported this town that we love, Austin, Texas, and this thing we do here, which is filmmaking. I think it's truly one of the great centers of good storytelling in our country, and I'm proud to be a small part of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool, man. Well, thank you.
Gracious. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our show today was recorded in studio by the good folks at Record ATX. Check them out at recordatx.com. Our theme music is produced by Jonathan Price. You can check out some of the sounds he makes with his project, The Mid-Cities, on Spotify. Follow, subscribe, and smash that like button if you see one. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.